Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 13th of July, and a very special Wednesday note. Please welcome Miss Ranjana Bhargav. She is the director, she's a member director for our board of directors. Welcome, Ranjana ji. Welcome to this Wednesday note and a very special segment for Sanjeevni where we are going to talk about domestic abuse 101. Could you please introduce yourself?
So I'm Ranjana, and back in 1990, no, back in 1989, we had no ways to know how to help women who were going through domestic violence. We didn't even know the definition of domestic violence. So while I tell you the definition of domestic violence, I also want you to understand that it does not mean that we were uh, not cognizant of what is going on. I was from mental health. Prem Sharma, another founder member, was from community, and she knew the community well. And Kanta Kipple came from the Department of Health. So all three of us were very determined that we will make a difference. We will make something or the other to help our own people. So there was a hotline, and the hotline helped us a lot because almost all the calls, whether it was a child's need or a family's need, they were all related to domestic violence. So that was our research that prompted us to say we must do something for domestic violence. So, beginning with the grant, the biggest part was we began to see real cases. The first case that came to Apna Ghar, once it was established, was a woman who was only married 3 months, and her husband had taken out one of her eye. She could not see from the eye. Now, the biggest challenge that we had at that time is we had limited money. We got a grant of 35,000 for the whole year. And with that limited money, we couldn't have got her eye done. So we went to University of Illinois, we went to eye hospital, and one of the doctors, an Indian doctor, decided that he will help her. So that is what was the starting of Apna Ghar. She stayed 3 months in the shelter. We had only a one-room apartment that the older woman from 48th district, she had given it to us. And in that apartment, when we asked her to leave because she had a job at Art Institute, she said, "You cannot throw me out. I I belong here. I I have been the first person, and we must make a difference." So, what I wanted to tell you is that a lot of times I do, I don't. I have to live with my children. I cannot destroy myself or my lover or husband, because if I do that, then I am really being the aggressor. So many times our women could not take an aggressive role. And that is what I was emphasizing, that with the person whose eye was taken out, we were able to teach her how to live her life independently and how to be able to do things for herself. So it doesn't mean that someone is beating you up. It doesn't mean that someone is depriving you. What it means is that all the time you're constantly living in fear and anxiety.
So, Ranjana ji, for this, a lot of people who call us for help, not realizing that the fear is an emotion that they are able to say this is a kind of a result of an abuse. Ranjana, is abuse only physical, only emotional, or are there other kinds of abuses also?
No, domestic abuse can be both for male or female. It means it can be short term or long term. It can be physical, which means it has also dealing with mental health consequences. The common uh, symptoms that you see are broken bones, bruising, lacerations, cardiovascular and gastrointestinal problems. Women also experience a lot of gynecological problems. And so many women, I was thinking of the days now, uh, went to abortion forced to be aborting their child because their husband did not want a child. And domestic violence is the most common form of injury among women. That means 1 out of 4 women can experience domestic violence. So that is a very high statistics, and many times that 1 out of 4 don't even want or don't even realize that they are in an abusive relationship. So the biggest part is to let that domestic violence issues be accepted and be seen by the people as something that can happen to them.
So, with that, we would also like to share that anyone who's watching or anyone who knows someone who's going through any kind of an abuse, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get the help. There's nothing to be ashamed of that maybe you made a mistake and that is why abuse happened. Ranjana ji, what
So
else
there are
can we
three
do to
things,
help them?
Pramila, that I want to say.
Sure.
One, people do not accept that there has been abuse to them. They feel it's a one time or couple of times incident and it is their fault. It rarely do people see that it is the other's fault, the aggressor's fault, that is causing this harm. The second is that even when abuse happens, you say, I am capable and I can change what is going on. And sometimes you don't have the skills or the know-hows how to do it. The third part, which was very important for us, is government had plans and ways that we could access. We as the first shelter for battered Asian women in the country, which is Apnaghar, did not know that there was nothing else in the entire country, that the women who were abused just thought that if they reported, they will be sent back to their country. And that became such a fear that domestic violence was tolerated, but not that whole concept of who am I, why am I important, and why should anybody care for me and do the right things. So as you we were talking earlier, domestic violence can be in many areas. There's always the physical abuse, which is reportable, but most abusers will hit you at a place where it is not visible. It's not the face, it's other parts. Second, there's emotional abuse. If constantly you are told how bad you are, how bad a cook you are, how bad a mother you are, or don't know anything, uh, you begin to say, I am no good. That's the emotional part. The next part is that a lot of times, even if you're not healthy, you begin to say that my health is not important because I have to meet the needs of my husband or lover or friend or whoever is the abuser. And therefore, you sacrifice all of it. The fourth part is that whether you are good or bad, you begin to believe that you are bad. and therefore you deserve this terrible treatment. And that treatment, when it is given to you, you have all the areas that you should be punished. It's almost like I went to a convent school that the nuns are constantly telling you you are bad. That's what the husband does. The fifth part is that whatever you're doing, if you're I mean, I'll give you an example how there was a woman who would clean her house, and she was locked up every day when the husband went to work. And he would come and he would demand food. And when he got the food and he said, "It is no good," or "You are terrible," one day, in order to get help, she actually threw a brush down, and someone who knew the language, she had written that "I am caged in." So think about being in a jail and not having any resources, not having language as a net resource, not having parents as someone who you can dialogue. You are deprived of even any family or friend relationship. And the worst is that you are given limited amount of food, limited amount of exposure. Even TV time was monitored. So you begin to say, where do I learn? What do I do? And how do I reach a place where someone can help me?
There's such, again, to everyone who's watching or who knows someone, know that there are many resources to get help. Sanjeevani is definitely one of them. There are many other organizations in the Chicagoland area and all the cities. If you're on visa, there's also help by the consulate office of your respective country. For South Asians, can be India, can be another country consulate. Help is there. So the most important is need to acknowledge and need to ask for the help. So Ranjana, one more question has come up. When we talk about domestic abuse, it's not necessarily between husband and wife. It can be between lovers, could be between children, could also be between parents and child.
Yes, and a lot of the in-laws have abused their daughter-in-law. And the husband may be cognizant or may not be cognizant of what is going on, but she is beaten up, or she's pinched, or she's taken very bad care. Even the food is given at the end of the day and very limited amount. So we found a lot of the women who were not just abused by their husband or their lover, but they can be also abused by their brothers. They can be abused by people who they have related to as friends. And our biggest contention at that time was all schools, all colleges, they should know about domestic violence, because at that time, whether it is American or Indian, women did not know that they could get help. So, domestic violence, even though in 1975 it was existing, there were only three shelters in the entire Chicago and the state. So there was very little information available. There was, we were the pioneers in terms of immigrant concerns. And therefore, we had to talk about it. We had to convince people, and the government had to agree. So it was not like the consulate denied us at that time of any help. They did not believe in us because we were speaking up to say we need help. And especially if we had to find out an abuser in that or the abuser's family from that country, it was so difficult.
Right.
So times have changed, and yes, today we can access not only the abuser's whereabouts, but also what background he has come from. At that time, we didn't, and a lot of marriages took place within one day or one week, and the girl was just accompanying the man. And then one of the abuse that I had is where the man treated the girl as a animal, and he would sit on her and ask her to move, and then he would take her to bed and do as many times as he could. So that is what you understand, that was sexual abuse. We did not think that we could interfere. How did we break that? And how did we get to that girl? That was very, very important. And therefore, we were soldiers who believed that if there was even a slight inkling of someone being abused, we were there with the police, but there were no Indian policemen. So they did not believe us. And we were had to convince the policemen that yes, this is something that we need help with.
So
So
that also brings it to a point. Sometimes culture also plays a big part in whatever is the environment, whatever may be the situation. Sometimes, and again, I'm just going to quote, female. Uh, in South Asian context, a female who has migrated to this country maybe has had an upbringing which was very different to say, she has to accept blame for everything. She has to make sure that the marriage works. She has to ensure that no matter what, the respect or the ego for the family has to be maintained. Ranjaji, that has changed right now. So what guidance do you have for such people who need help?
So now, when a woman comes to Apna Ghar or to any of the shelters, and believe it or not, today we have 29 shelters in Chicago, and all of them have a cultural orientation. That means even with a different culture, I would be served and taken care of. And the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois helps us in doing that. When a woman comes in, it doesn't mean that we are doubting, we are listening. And while we are listening, we are also saying, these are the things that we have noted as important, and we will verify. And that verification has become such an easier job now than what it was before, because we can not just go to the consulate, but we can go to the city, we can go to the Asian groups and make possible what was impossible at that time. So I just want to say that silence does not mean that you're breaking abuse. Silence means that you are quiet, you don't want to take any action. The biggest therapy that we can give to people is what is happening to you has to come into the open, and we will keep that privilege of not sharing with other people. Even even to this day, you will not find the name of the person. It's we transform their name, the phone numbers are transformed. That means when the woman was calling Apna Ghar, she had a phone number which was distorted, and she knew that it was distorted, so that the abuser does not know that she's calling. Abu- when an abuser is in the same room, in the same premise, she cannot take any action. So she had to find ways. Sometimes it was muffled voice under a comforter that would tell us what is going on. So there were very many different ways that we found out about our women. And we always felt that by visiting them or by finding people in that area who could figure that out, or get later on, I mean, while at Apna Ghar, the second year that I was in Apna Ghar, we got the first Indian policeman. So that Indian policeman helped us by going with us to the homes. And that was very important because it was cultural sensitivity. And many times the women won't even open the doors because we were strangers. And strangers were abhorred by the abuser, and he did not want, he or she, sometimes there were she's, um, who did not want any entrance. So fighting meant awareness. Fighting meant that you didn't get agonized by what is going on. You said, I have to move this person forward and make her independent and make her self sufficient so that she can take care of herself or her children. And that was very important.
Thank you, Ranjani. That very helpful, important information. Once again, anyone watching who knows someone, let them know. Fighting has many ways. Being aware, trying to help themselves is also one part of it. And to everyone who wants to reach to Sanjeevni, Sanjeevni does provide 24 by 7 free advocacy and support for anyone going through mental health concerns or domestic abuse. Your call is confidential and any conversations you have remains within the organization. So if you know someone, let them know this information. This is also fighting back. So Ranjani, couple of questions more. So many a times when someone calls, say Sanjeevni or any other organization, there has been a situation. The organization helps them and gives the information to take note of future actions. And when a follow up is done, they say, well, my partner, my boyfriend, or my spouse,
No.
he has asked for forgiveness. He has said that it's not going to happen again. I'm fine, nothing is going to happen. But a month later the same situation happens. What is this cycle and how can we help them?
So I want to show you this, and this can be accessed from any place. This was the first of the power and control wheel that we have. And that means that when some action is taken which is detrimental to your health, to your well-being, and to your independence, it means that you also look at where is it coming from. So the first thing that we use is, we you in a relationship, you may be intimidated, you may be always told how you cannot do something right. The second time, and that is so repeated that you start believing in that. The second part is that emotional abuse, which is saying to you that you are no good, that whatever you are doing is not proper, that you are uneducated, or even if you have a master's and you are educated, that you have no awareness of America, no awareness of your surroundings. So you are incompetent, and that incompetence is very hurtful. The third part is that a lot of times, and I can tell you how many times we saw women being locked up, women being told, not given any money, not given any leeways to even live independent, to live like a person. So there was a lot of isolation. That means children cannot go to school. You don't know how many times we had to take the children, register them to school, and make sure that the bus comes and picks up the child, because the father would not allow. The another thing is that we there is a lot of denying from the woman, uh, or the victim, and the blaming is done on her. The blaming is also done in a way that she begins to say that I am no good. Another part that you can see is that the children are often used as baits, and therefore children are seen as people who will say something bad to the mother, or are taught how to be very, very different. um, and children are taught that they their mother is not good enough, and because of that the children start hating their mother, or there may be times that the mother is not even privileged to do anything because the children are taught how to become uh, authoritative but not take the mother's side. Another one is the male privilege is something that we were all brought up in India. I came here in 1967. At that time, if a male figure, whether it is a brother or a father or any uncle, if they said something, you had to abide. And that male privilege was also something that became so prominent among our domestic violence victims. Another thing that happened is a lot of women did not even get money to spend for grocery. They were taken by the abuser to the store, and that's when they could buy. The clothes and all of them were minimized. And the last part is that when you are constantly threatened, when you are constantly told that you are no good, you begin to see that control and say, this is who I am. I am no good. And there were people who had PhDs and who came to our shelter and who began to see themselves almost like servants. And that is a very hard thing to look at, how constant battering results in feeling so intimidated that cannot even do simple things in life.
One thing to call out, you pointed out, education, financial status, employment status has nothing to do with abuse. Anyone can be an abuser, anyone can be abused.
Yes. And if you look at Chicago statistics at this time, there is the report says, which is of today, that 65% of the relationships right now, whether it is lover, brother, sister, or wife, or or someone in a relationship, they are being abused because the power is about, I can do this, you cannot do that. And that becomes very much a victimization syndrome.
These are such alarming numbers, Ranjaji, and things have changed. People have progressed, but some things need a lot of time to change, and the change can be brought about by us, by all who are watching, all who may be suffering, or if you know someone who's going through this, please reach out to them, let them know that help is there. They can reach to so many of these organizations in the Chicago area, and as I said, Sanjeevani is one of them. But please ask for help. You have to take care of yourself, and once you take care of yourself, your children and your family are going to follow.
And
Ranjani,
sometimes you only have to write your number or something that they have. Sometimes I would even say, write it on your leg with a marker pen. So you would always have that. And, when you take a bath, because marker pen is there, you will not forget about that number. And that was very important.
yeah, great tip, Ranjani. And as again, thank you so much for all of the insight. We have requested our viewers to send their questions either by text or by email. Once these questions come, we are going to send it to you for your guidance and input on that. Any other parting words as we conclude the session today?
So my most important part is that whether you are intimidated, whether you are harassed, whether there's physical abuse or sexual abuse or verbal abuse, anything can result into strangulation, stabbing, and shooting. So make sure that you are not doing anything or nothing to keep your relationship. Take action. That is very important. And listen, but not react. Because if you react in front of your abuser, you are in trouble. So listen, understand, and then find resources that can help you. Sometimes it's a neighbor, sometimes it's an older person, sometimes it can be any outreach person. It can be, you know, every time you cannot get legal help. But by judging your behavior, by judging the other's behavior, that helps, especially in therapy and especially in knowing that you are in a relationship that can be changed.
Act, listen, and be aware is what we take out from this session. Domestic abuse is there. We can help each other, we can help ourselves. Thank you so much, Ranjana Bhargavji, and all who are watching and who will be watching later. I would like to also share the Sanjeevani helpline number just in case if you would like to pass it on to someone. 224-424-0050. Please share the question. Help is just there. Thank you, Ranjaji. Much appreciated for all the guidance and help on domestic abuse information. We will come back again with all the answers to the questions. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.